joining us right now, co-convener for Tiecon 2016, BJ Arun. BJ, thank you so much for joining us. You're looking fantastic. I don't know how you do this with all this chaos going around here.
Well, you got to stay pretty calm because when you have 5,000 people at a place like this, it's a zoo. So you got to be really calm, and all kinds of things get thrown at you. But yeah, we pull it off. We've been doing it for a long time. I was convener last year as well, so I've seen this movie before. And yeah, it's fun.
Tiecon has fundamentally shifted, in my opinion, since Prime Minister Narendra Modi came into place in India. I think there is a big influence of, bringing Indian industry and bringing US industry back to India. There's a lot of collaboration taking place. We've seen Tiecon hosting Prime Minister Modi, and now with Digital India, Startup India, now seeing Odisha, Andhra Pradesh, and several other governments that are, state governments that are being proactive and coming here. So you guys have really stepped it up. So what is the big change since last year?
It's not so much that we stepped up our game, it's really the government of India has stepped up their game, right? So what used to happen is that, politicians have always been coming to the Silicon Valley. But in my experience, pretty much used to be like a joyride for them. They just come on a shopping trip, do some sightseeing and go back, and nobody would ever follow up. This is the first time in my 20-some years in the Valley, I saw somebody who came, who followed up, took our inputs, incorporated it into their Startup India policy. When they launched it, they had us all come there, be part of their state guests. And so really, I think, and again, whether I'm, I don't have any political leanings, but I just respect a leader who's actually trying to do something to help the country. And so I found the Prime Minister to be extremely sincere and, really getting things done. So that's really the difference.
For Tiecon, I see this year there's been very interesting tracks, very interesting speakers. As convener, you oversee all of this. Give us sort of the top level view of how you navigate all the different operational challenges within Tiecon.
Right. So clearly, I think, when you have 250 plus speakers, when you have 10 different tracks, there's no way I could personally be involved in every one of them. So what we do is we put together a phenomenal team of volunteers. And so even amongst these volunteers, each track, I sort of pick 3 or 4 what I call track chairs. And these are typically people who are at the CXO level in companies. So they could be CEOs of companies. And the amazing thing is all of these people come and willingly give their time for this cause. And so think about if we had to hire 30 CEOs to come and put together a conference like this. Think about how many millions of dollars it would cost us to do that. It doesn't cost us anything, and that's how you have such a quality conference put together. And these people have their own spheres of influence, so if we need a hot speaker, these people know, and they have relationships with them. So they go out there and say, hey, you know what, come and speak, and they get favors from speakers, sponsors. All of these is primarily because of personal relationships. And that comes only if you're a credible person, right? If you don't have the credibility, you don't get these people. So that's really why we're so successful and how we're able to kind of have 10 different tracks and still be, phenomenally successful in getting all these speakers, etc.
Now I want to talk a little bit about what you do outside of Tiecon. You're in the mobile space.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about July Systems, and you've just been sort of taken over the mantle there as well. Talk a little bit about how that came about and your sort of background in the Valley and how you ended up at July.
Sure. So I've been in the Valley for a couple of decades now, right? So I got here in the late 80s, and this is not my first rodeo. So I have started 3 different companies in the past. And so I was looking for an opportunity which allowed me the ability to go back and forth between Bangalore and San Francisco. So I have a home in Bangalore as well, and for personal reasons, I needed to go back and forth between the 2 cities. And I was also looking to get into the mobile space because my original companies were in the hardware space. So we used to build these large supercomputers and things, but those are all sunset businesses. So I wanted to get into mobile, and so July was a company which has been around for a long time. Very heavily capitalized. We have raised in excess of $70 million in venture money, and so the management, the board was looking for a management change. So they wanted to bring somebody in who could pretty much turn it around. They were sort of bleeding quite heavily. They were losing a lot of money, and so for somebody like me who had the fiscal discipline of having run a hardware business, who had the connections in the Silicon Valley, because we had a team of about close to 400 people in Bangalore. but most of the founders, they were all Bangalore based. They didn't really have deep valley roots and connections. And so this was a perfect fit. And so the board liked what I did, I liked what they did. And in the span of just about 2 years now, I've turned it around to where we're profitable and we're growing very, very rapidly.
Now, this is a very interesting space. The mobile platform space that you guys are in. Mobile penetration continues to grow, especially in countries like India, which people didn't see coming. Now it's okay. This is going to happen pretty much in every developing nation. And then you talk about mobile penetration here in the U.S. Do you think it's plateauing, or is it going to continue to grow as fast as, say, the developing nations?
Right. So I think two things. I think it's a two-part question. I wouldn't say it's plateauing, but the shift from desktop to mobile has already happened. So 5 years ago, that wasn't quite there yet. It was still early days for mobile, but now more people use their mobile to get stuff done than use their laptop or desktops, right? I mean, desktops are pretty much dead, and as far as the developing or emerging countries are concerned, some of those people didn't even have desktop computing, right? A lot of them just leapfrogged and went directly to mobile. So if you look at like India, for example, right? All of the rural areas, I mean, those people had no hope of getting a laptop or a computer. But now that they have smartphones, they pretty much enjoy all of the benefits that somebody in the West does using a smartphone.
When we talk about enterprise level clients, such as some of the media companies that are currently partnered with July Systems, it's a very interesting space to be in. How do you get media companies and the enterprise clients to buy into this complex mobile platform? I'm sure there's a learning curve with these executives. I understand that for a lot of CEOs, it's very hard to grasp this space and then to understand how this platform is actually going to help grow their business.
So I think in the early days, we were the first people out the chute. So we were pioneers in this space. So if you talk to a CNN or if you talk to an NBC or any of those people, they had no alternatives. So it was easy to actually land them just because we were one of the few people in town who did that. But as the market matured, more and more people started bringing these kind of things in-house because mobile became mainstream. It wasn't just a niche thing they were pursuing. And so this was a challenge even for July, that at one point they were doing tens of millions of dollars worth of business with all of these companies. But the moment each customer's revenues exceeded $1 million a month with us, they started taking another look and saying, hey, maybe we should do this ourselves. Why are we paying like a vendor to do this much money? And so you almost have to then reinvent yourself because that whole paradigm shifted for us. And so after I came on board, what I decided is instead of going direct and trying to kind of take on this whole challenge now, is we go through to market through our OEM channel partners. So we'd sign up, let's say, a Cisco or Aruba or Ruckus, and those people have the reach, they have the credibility, and they know how to sell to the enterprise. So we no longer try and do everything ourselves. So I shut down offices that we had in Germany, in the UK, on the East Coast, West Coast. We used to have like offices all over, spending tens of millions of dollars every year on just sales. So I cut all of that stuff down, and that's how I was able to turn it profitable. So
apply the bootstrap startup strategy to something like this, where you're able to sort of reinvent yourself and move forward.
Pretty much, and also unlike, though July Systems has been around for a while and it's relatively well known, we have hundreds of employees, but still, right, it's not a household name. But if, let's say, a mall in Indonesia or like a retailer like Harrods in London is buying this stuff, they would much rather buy it from a Cisco or an IBM than a July who, Right. So that's why the strategy is working like a charm for us.
Well, we wish you continued success. Thank you so much for joining us. That was BJ Arun, co-convener for Tiecon 2016.